right, hello, Chameleon Wranglers. Welcome to another day of the DIY Chameleon Guys, and I am here with James Cross. Hello,
Let's
James.
build something. Come on, let's build something, Bill.
Am I taking too much time yapping?
No. We're just, two guys, weekends, whenever we can get it done, we get it done.
That's right, it just happens. Well, I'm thinking today we've got something planned that's been looked forward to by the community for a long time. So, James, how about you introduce what it is we're going to do today?
Well, I got initiated last weekend or week before with the Cluminati came in and graced me with the the name the Fog Father, and I'm accepting the challenge. I've been doing this fogging for a long time. I've built many different kinds of styles, but I've come up with some tried and true favorites, and I think I need to share it with the community so that they can make their own.
Okay. That sounds like a great idea, and I am excited to be the first guinea pig of this. So, today, let's talk about all the design aspects, and then this next week, I am going to build at least one, and then we'll come
Okay,
back the week after and we will talk about lessons learned. So,
awesome.
today, James, let's get me and everybody else who wants to do this with us started.
Okay,
So,
okay.
what is the anatomy of how in the world do we build a fogger?
It was one of those things that I fell across it on the internet a few years back, and they were using it for growing orchids and bringing humidity into greenhouses. And I was like, hey. And so I bought one of them. It's just the unit. It's not. You have to make your device or your reservoir and your intake and outtake, and you have to add your fans to it. But it's really easy.
Okay.
And what I really like about them is the fact that you can. It's 5 gallons. It's not fill it up every day when you get home from work. It's 5 gallons of water, or you can go bigger. If you got several enclosures and you want to hook them all up, you can go up. I'm using in one of my enclosures 27 gallons. I don't have to
Wow.
fill it up for like 10 days.
Yeah, and the reason why I am so excited about this episode is because fogging in the chameleon community, the reptile community, it's still so at the starting level. I won't say primitive, but kind of primitive. And the
Mm-hmm.
foggers that we have available to us are just so basic. And they
Yeah.
and randomly they'll start leaking. It's like, wow, we're really getting the short end of the stick. And until our community gets a little bit more involved or more into it, and someone actually invests in creating a high quality fogger, it's left to us to make our own. And so this is so applicable to everybody who has a chameleon and wants to really up the hydration of that chameleon. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into it. First of all, can you just give us an idea of fogging? What produces the fog?
It's a hydrostatic plate that's literally magnetized and it vibrates so fast that it atomizes the water and turns it into fog. And then you just got to get it to move.
Okay.
So moving it is just by adding a basic computer fan.
Okay. You're making it
It's
sound
very
simple.
simple. That's what boggles my mind.
All right. So maybe we'll start at a high level, talk about
Okay.
what the components are that we need, where we get them, and then we can start getting into a specifics as to and actually show the actual components. So high level theory. What do we how do we put one of these together? And
Most of your parts are basic parts that won't cost you much more than about $20
okay.
at Home Depot. The whole system, I think I'm putting them together for $35. The most important component in the entire unit is a transducer that literally vibrates a plate and atomizes the fog. Um,
Now,
yeah, and I buy these from the House of Hydro. They have several different sizes. For the bucket fogger, you only need a single head. I've tried them all. I have a 12 disc in the house. Too much.
okay.
Um, I tried to use a 3 disc in a bucket fogger. It's too much.
Okay, so when you're
Three
saying
disc.
disc, What
So
do you
they
mean
have
disc?
they have discs, and I'll show you the single and the transducer itself. So this is the transducer itself,
Okay.
and that's a disc inside of it. Okay, and what happens is that this gets energized, and it makes a vibration, which makes that plate vibrate up and down, which causes the fog,
Okay. And so when
creates
you're
the fog.
saying multi-disc, you say they've got those things, but it has more than one disc?
So this is a single disc, and they have them with 4 and 5 and 6. I think there's 3, 5, 9, and 12 disc.
All right. And I'm
Heat
gathering the
transducer.
more the discs, the more the fog. Yes?
A lot more fog. You really feeling foggy? Get a 12-inch or 12 disc.
Well, is there a way?
I,
Can you give us an idea how many discs do we need for a single one or two cages?
1 or 2 cages. I would stick with the one or three.
Okay.
I'm running. I'm doing 3 cages with a 5 disc, and it's a little too much.
Okay.
I run my big giant habitats that are 4 by 5 by 30 inches deep. Those I run on a 27-gallon reservoir with a 3 disc, and it works perfect. It's plenty.
Okay.
It's plenty for it.
Okay.
So if you're doing a 2 by 2 by 4, a 5-gallon bucket and a single disc is plenty.
Okay.
Plenty for what you're doing.
All right. Now, when you brought up that transducer, there was there was a housing, there was something that was it was sitting in. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And
So
why is that
this is
important?
a float. It's called a float, and basically it is a float.
Okay.
It actually will keep the transducer floating just the right level above the water to allow it to produce the fog. Once it goes too deep, you'll no longer get any fog.
Okay.
And it just sits inside of this little guy like this, okay? And this will float on top of the water, and it literally keeps it just an inch or so below the water level, and that's what allows the fog to be produced.
Okay.
If it gets too deep, the transducer gets too deep, then you won't be producing any fog. It'll just be blowing. It'll dissipate before it gets out of the water.
Okay. So that floats on top of the water, and as the fog is made and the water level goes down, it just stays on top of the level, so it's
Follows
always at
that
the right
float
level.
follows it up and down. Yep.
All right.
What a great idea, right?
Yes. So okay. So we've
Yeah.
got that.
I also hydro. Go ahead.
Oh, so
I'm sorry.
we've got that, and that's producing fog. Now, how do we get the fog out of the container and up the whatever output we have?
Okay, so we're going to, and you'll get to see a bunch of pictures of how to put these together, but I'm just going to show you what I have in my hand right now. And basically, this is the back side of it. I've cut 2 holes inside of this lid. We've got a fan and a discharge, and that's all you need.
Okay, so the fan blows air into the bucket, creates enough pressure so the fog goes out the tube. All right,
Correct.
sounds like a
Correct.
good way to go. Um, what do we need? Anything special about that fan?
I started out using computer fans, just the regular ones that have the speed adjuster on it, and they work fairly well. The problem was is that every once in a while when you're being in a hurry or whatever you have, and you fill that bucket up, sometimes you might fill it up a little bit too far and it gets that fan wet,
Okay,
and they don't like it, so they end up going toast on you. So recently I've switched over to waterproof fans.
okay,
They're a couple of more bucks, but they save you the headache of having to scramble to get a fan delivered from wherever, Amazon or Chewy or whoever you buy from, to get it to you quickly. So this is the avenue I took. I started using these waterproof fans, and I think at this point I've gotten them wet a couple of times, and it seemed to be working pretty well.
now where do you get waterproof fans?
House of Hydro sells
Okay,
a really nice one, and then you can also buy them online through Amazon, or some of your electronic stores will carry them too.
okay. Um, Before we get to the output, let's talk about the fog production. Uh, is there a way to control how much fog comes out besides the number of discs?
Okay, I'm I'm sure there is, and it's not an avenue I've taken um, because it's just not necessary if you're getting the right size transducer. I think
Okay.
it's putting enough fog, and that's good enough control for me. Now, what you can do, and I don't have one available, but they do have PVC valves.
Okay.
They're plastic that you can put it in line and you can cut it down by turning that valve. It will allow less to flow through or more to flow through.
Okay. What is you mentioned a variable? I think you mentioned a variable speed fan. What is the
Yeah.
purpose of changing the speed of the fan?
So what you really want is that. I wish I had the sucker in here. Um, what you want is that. What you want is that you want some buildup before you start trying to blow it out. What'll happen is if you have too much of a high pressure and you're blowing the fog is going to be very thin, if not. Uh, it's not going to be thick fog when it comes out of the end. It's
Yep.
going to be very aerated. So what you're going to want to do is adjust that fan speed to get just the right amount of fog flowing and allowing it some time to build up inside of your fogger itself. You know, the 5 gallon bucket, you don't want to fill it all the way to the top. You want to have the space where the fog can accumulate first before before you start trying to get it out. And the more space it gets, you'll notice that more fog and the easier off more fog that will come out of the machine as the water starts to drop.
Okay. While this is running, how important is it that you have a tight seal around the top?
It's pretty important, but I don't think you lose it. You know, I was really weird about it when I first got it. I wanted it sealed and I wanted it tight and I didn't want any fog escaping when I first started doing this. And I found that it's really not that big of a deal if some of the fog escapes.
Oh,
I do make sure that the bucket is sealed and smack down. I do have a couple of small leaks that the fog does come out underneath the cabinet, but it's such a small amount that it's not that big of a deal.
okay. The let's talk about the reservoir. The so you're talking about 5 gallon bucket. What is important about selecting a reservoir?
Well, I've been using the Home Depot buckets. Yes, they're not food grade, and I have been using their bins, which are also not food grade. But I haven't seemed to have a problem with either one of them. I don't know what the difference between food grade and construction worker grade are.
White and orange.
But what I do know is that they're all plastic, and I don't think that they're very harmful in either way. Um, so what I've done with this one is I've actually added a Miss King bulkhead to the bottom of it. So now I can run my Miss King and my fogger off of this
Okay.
side. And this is one of my reservoirs that I've been doing. Come on, AI. And this will be my discharge. This will be my fan. And then this one over here is going to be my fill up. And I've got a little trick for making a way of filling this up. You know, what's nice about this community is I've got my way of doing it. You may be starting to build your own, and you go, hey, I got a great idea. Maybe we could do this. And then maybe you could share that with me and then teach me something. You know, that's what we're all trying to
Yeah.
do here, right?
That's where the
So,
community grows.
you know, my methods are my methods. I'm just a carpenter guy, MacGyvering some stuff in my garage. And I've come up with some really neat ideas, and I'd like to hear some of yours too.
Okay. Well, okay. That output looks a little bit complicated. And so I'm going to ask a simple question about the cover, and then we'll tackle that output. And I love the idea of having the Mister have the same reservoir as the fogger. The fewer buckets we have to deal with, the better.
Right?
Uh,
So right now you're only going to have two. You're going to have your reservoir and you're going to have your drain bucket, and that's it.
okay. And the idea of being able to fill it up without taking the cover off,
Right.
we are definitely going to explore that. But
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed on the covers of these buckets, there are a
Mm-hmm.
number of these. It's hard to find at least it was hard for me to find a smooth top cover, and so they have all these ridges and whatnot. Does that cause a problem when we're installing all these different things?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with it too, and I've got a couple different kinds that I've tried out. Um, This being one of them. And believe it or not, this is food grade. I ordered this guy online. Um, and you know what's funny is I went back to the Home Depot because it had the least amount of
Mm.
ridges against the side. So I was able to spread it out as far as I could. And what's nice about the Home Depot bucket too is it actually comes with a rubber gasket. I don't know if you can see
Oh
that on the
yeah.
inside, but it's got a rubber gasket that seals. So that's I went back to the Home Depot bucket, and in this episode, Bill's going to show you. I've already got it laid out for you. Gives you the measurements, the drill bit sizes, and it shows you how to do it.
Okay. All right. By the way, before and
What?
I am keeping that output till the end because I know it's a once we get into that we'll forget everything else. How do we get all the electric cords inside the bucket?
You know, you the only thing that goes inside of the bucket is the transducer. So I've got a notch in the back of the bucket, and you have some notches that actually come with the lid. And what I'll do is I'll put the lid where I want it, orientate it. And what I kind of try to do is make sure that that handle is accessible and it sits in between the two output and the fan. That way, when I pick it up, I've got plenty of room to move it back and forth. And then I just put a notch in the
Okay.
back of the bucket, a very small one, just to have the wire go out. The unit itself that comes from House from Hydro has a little rubber gasket, and I'll slip that guy in there. And then when I set the lid back on top of it, it seals
Okay.
that little notch.
Nice. Nice. All right, James. The time has come to talk about the output. Uh, Explain to us what it is you've got there. How am I going to put this together?
Okay, so it takes I think it's a 3.5 inch hole. So what you're going to use is what's called a shower drain. Um, and basically, what it is it's a drain that's used in commercial construction. You can buy them at Home Depot. They're $8, and they look like this.
Okay.
Okay. And so what it is it's a threaded fitting, and it comes with a paper gasket and a rubber gasket. Okay, so the two gaskets. So what you're going to do is you're going to put this section of it through your 3.5 inch hole. You're going to drop your rubber gasket on top of that, and your paper gasket on top of that. What's the paper gasket for? Well, the paper gasket is to keep the rubber gasket from binding up when you're turning the drain and putting it on top.
Oh,
Okay,
look at that.
it keeps that rubber gasket in place, and it will create a seal between the top of your lid, right in here.
Okay.
It'll create a seal between the top of your lid and the top of your bucket. And you literally, I put silicone on them, but you don't really even have to. You can see that it cinches up really tight.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
nice rubber fit. And then all you have to do is get your PVC fittings from Home Depot. And these are reducers. And your reducers just literally fit in there. Nothing, what's nice about the fogging system is nothing has to be glued together. You're not dealing with extreme pressure. So the fog will actually be stopped. You don't have to glue your fittings together, and it gives you that opportunity to take everything apart and clean it if you want to.
Okay. What size PVC pipe would you recommend for coming off of this?
Okay, so I've had a problem with that. I've gone from 3/4 all 1 inch. I've tried all the different sizes. I prefer 2 inches all the way up, but it doesn't work so well with a 2 by 2 by 4 cage. Because you just don't have the space. It ends up shoving it so far away from the wall. So I've dropped down to 1.25 inches for my 2 by 2 cages. I'm still using my 2 inch PVC for my bigger enclosures and for running longer distances. Basically, size is volume. So the bigger the pipe you use, the more volume of fog you're going to be able to push.
Okay. All right. And so we get those together, fog comes out, and then
How do I hold it to the top,
how
right?
do
I
you
knew
hold it
what
to
you
the
were going
top?
to.
What's
I knew you were thinking of
the
that.
input to the
I
cage and how
knew
do you
it.
hold it up there?
Well, if you go back in time, there was this thing called a shepherd's hook. Do you remember
I
that?
remember a shepherd's hook.
Okay, well, so does James. Being an old
Yeah,
timer,
but James, we are like we're like really old. We got to explain these things.
I actually hung out with shepherds once. So, um, Basically, this is a shepherd's hook. Let's see if I can get it in the
Uh
frame.
huh.
All
There
right.
we go.
Okay, there it is. Basically, this is a shepherd's hook. I've taken 1.25 inch PVC, I've added 290s to it, and I've made a hook. And then, as you know, the tubing, which we haven't talked about that much
Yep,
yet,
that's next.
but this tubing, the reason I've added the tubing to it is because now I don't have to be hard piped all the way to my bucket, and I'm able to move my bucket around and access the lid and so on and so forth with some flexible tubing. The tubing is spa tubing. You can buy this also at Home Depot. It comes in 3 different sizes. You can also get it up to 2 inch. I prefer the 1.25 inch when I'm doing a 2x2 cage. And then if you look at the bottom of my shepherd's hook, let's see if I can make that show. You have threads in
Yep.
there. Okay, so this is a slip fitting, which has no threads, slip fitting, which has no threads, and a threaded fitting on the other end. The crazy thing about it is those threads will actually grab on to the tubing. So there's again no glue needed.
Okay, so
Okay.
the flexibility. What are the use cases to where that's important?
So the flexibility of the tubing is right here in front of you.
Okay.
Basically, this allows me to lift my lid off without having to worry about this rigid piece of pipe um, not allowing me to do that. And I can pull my lid off, slide my bucket out from underneath, and then I can put my lid back on without ever affecting my attachment to the top of the cage. And that's what I'll end up doing with this part, is we just run this up over the top of the back of the cage, and I'll take an electrical clamp and just screw it to the top, poke a small hole in my screen, and now I have a permanent fixture, except for the tubing on the bottom, that I don't have to worry about it falling off or finding a way of attaching it to the top of the
Now,
cage.
do you have any problems with the tubing collecting water? I mean, and because when we got those cheap ones, we have the tubes that come off, and if they have this little dip or anything, water congregates, and then it's fog doesn't work so well.
So what you'll see if you look on the inside of this guy, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen, but it has very little on the inside as far as the ridges. Most of the ridges are on the
But I mean, if
outside of
it
this
like
unit.
loops, if it dips down.
You don't want it to loop, of course, and you want to always give it a way to get out. So as long as it's 22 degrees or
Okay.
better, the water will all flow back into the bucket. You won't have a problem with that.
Wonderful. All right. Now the question is, how do we keep this clean, and what maintenance is necessary?
Okay, so my trick for it is, first of all, you can't see through this unit. And it's also kept underneath the cabinet, which is very dark. So most of the time, what I've found is that the only time you get crusties, growies, and moldies is when it has access to light. Um, that's when you're going to start seeing some kinds of growths. Um, what I do is every time I fill up my fogger, it's not when it's in a runtime, and I will fill it up with piping hot water. Um, does that do anything? I'm not sure, but I feel like it's killing off anything that it's creating any
Okay.
issues. And then what I'll do is usually once a month, once every 2 months, I'll take the bucket apart and I'll just take it into the sink and run some vinegar through it and wipe it down. I really haven't seen very much buildup, especially with my dark black reservoir foggers. They can go sometimes up to 6 months without a cleaning.
Okay. Now,
It's not an every week thing, you know. I keep hearing these with the clear ones. The problems that a lot of people have been having is you got a clear tube that goes up to it. It's in a clear reservoir. Everything's clear. It's getting access to
uh,
sunlight. When that sunlight hits it, you know what happens when water and sunlight get together? They like to make algae. You know.
okay. The other reservoir you mentioned having a way to fill it up without taking the lid off. Let's explore that
Hmm.
feature.
It's a paint bucket that you carry around with you that has a pour spout on it. And when I saw it in Home Depot, I was like, man, that looks about the exact same size as the drain. And so I took one part over to the other part and the other part in the section and the parts and the parts and parts. And I said, hey, I can MacGyver this thing into a pour spout. And it gives me a trough to aim for when I'm pouring my 5 gallon bucket into the reservoir.
So is it just an open hole?
It well, originally it's a bucket that you carry around for painting. It actually has a place to put your brush.
But this is a
Um,
hole in the top of the container. Doesn't the fog escape and you lose your pressure?
so yeah, you basically just have a drain into this paint bucket, and then I just take one of these little guys, and this is a reducer with a piece of PVC and a cap.
Oh, okay.
And I can kind of show you on this one. Let's say this is the bottom of the bucket, and this guy just fits right in there. Now I've stopped the fog from coming back
Oh,
down.
okay.
Super neat, super easy, super silly.
It works. All right.
Huh?
All right. So we're gonna have to figure out how to do that with
What's
the.
neat about this paint bucket is I've been able to adapt it to different cages, and hopefully we'll be able to show a couple pictures of this guy. I've had it underneath cabinets. I've actually piped out from underneath cabinets, and I have it sticking off the side, so I don't have to pull the lid off of everything. And I'm able to actually pour 5 gallon bucket without spilling it all over the floor, and that was the whole purpose behind it. I just couldn't find anything that would catch the water and be able to funnel it into the unit. And this is what I came up with by buying parts at Home Depot and not spending a bunch of money.
Now, will that fit on the 5 gallon bucket lid?
No, it will
Okay.
not. Yeah, that's the only time. But the 5 gallon bucket was so easy just to pull the lid off to fill it up and pull the bucket out. You can literally pull the lid off, take the bucket over to the sink, fill it up with water, carry it back, stick it back underneath there, smack the sides a few times, and you're ready to go. Whereas 27 gallons of water,
Yeah.
you're not going to carry that back to the sink.
Uh,
You know, that's you know that's five gallon buckets.
all right, James. I think I have what I need to make one of my own. Is there anything that I should be asking that I'm not thinking about asking?
Um,
Or are we just going to see what happens?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is, the key to this whole process is look at our parts list, come up with a plan of attack. Takes 3 to 5 days to get your fogger in. So I get all your parts ordered on a Sunday and go shopping during the week and build it the next
All
Saturday.
right. I'm going to do that this week. And then, everybody, we are going to come back next Wednesday for the next episode. And we're going to have a lessons learned where I am going to talk about my experience executing all of these instructions and finding these parts and working with all of them. And so you're going to get a view from the other side of someone actually doing this. So, all right, James, we're going to see how this works.
It's going to be fun. Let's do
I
it.
am excited for
Do it
this.
yourself.
So, all right, all. Have a good week, and we will be back next week to see what has happened when me attempting to do this. So,
Keep some towels around, Bill. You might need to clean up some messes.
oh man. All right. Well, I'm excited. I'll share what messes are created. So, all right. See you later, everybody.
Take care, everyone. See you next time.